The cutting board. Everybody's got one in their house. It's not only a necessary kitchen tool for cutting things, but it's also a status symbol. If you've got cheap, plastic, flimsy cutting boards, you're never going to show them off to anybody because it's not cool. If you've got one that's nice and wooden with a cool design in it, of course you're going to show that sucker off. But how can you show it off if it's not smooth on the top? And how do you get it smooth? I present you the router sled. All you gotta do is set up the sled box things. I don't know what to call them. Sled rails. You set the sled on top of the rails. You grab your router. With a CNC bit on it, all right, or some kind of planing bit. You grab your unplaned cutting board, such as this one right here, the nasty gouge and an interesting little ribbon that sticks up from the top. Set it underneath at the desired height, and you just go back and forth over the cutting board while you slide your rails over. It's super simple, and I'm going to show you how I made it, so you can make one too.
First, let's decide our materials. I chose some 1/2-inch Doug fir plywood because that's what was lying around in the shop, and I took it over to the chop saw, cutting it down at around 32 inches. I cut it there because that's how long this line was that you can see on the chop saw, and I didn't have any longer material. Also, 32 inches is shorter than my saw table, so we'll just stick with that measurement. I then took it down to the table saw and decided to cut off that slightly rough edge. Before we do that, because it's such a thin slice, I'm going to take out this insert and replace it with one called a zero clearance insert. Now that is basically just a piece of plywood that you cut to fit into that insert slot. You then raise the blade slowly as you put it in, and it cuts a nice slot in this zero clearance insert where nothing can fall down into that space. As you can see as I'm putting on, there. Fits nice and snug, no gaps on the sides of the blade. Just right. What I'm doing here is extremely stupid, and I would advise you never to do this at home. Can you spot it? Yes, I am cutting with the material that I'm cutting off, known as the offcut, on the inside, between the fence and the blade. Oh boy, if I'd only watched some table saw safety videos before I did this, I would know that making your offcut on the inside here can lead to a phenomenon known as kickback. That. Let's watch it again in slow motion. Jeez, look at how that thing could have gone right through my abdomen. One last time. Right into that little slot in the shelf. Luckily, it wasn't my belly button, so I was okay. Other than having some emotional damage.
So what did we learn? We learned that you need to cut these on the outside edge, not the inside. And you need to give them support, especially when you don't have a riving knife, like I don't have. That's all.
With that out of the way, I decided to cut down my side walls. I cut a piece of plywood using proper safety techniques. As you can see here, I have a push stick and am keeping the offcut where it should be, off of the cutting area. And with this, I'm just going to make 2 plates to go on the side of my router sled. These will have a diagonal cut on each end, 3/4 of an inch up from the base. As you can see here, I've cleaned up one side of the board, and then I'm going to go down the middle and mark it using a level to draw a straight line all the way across the middle. I measured 3/4 of an inch up from each face, and then make a 45-degree angle from the sides to the middle. After all my lines are drawn, I take it back over to the table saw and run it through right on the middle. Now, since you don't want to get your fingers too close to the blade, you should use a push stick. As you see, I reach for and grab. That is just the best way to push something through your table saw without risking losing a finger. Now I take it over to the chop saw and cut that first 45-degree angle, and then repeat the process 3 more times. And here we have the finished side panels. Now I set them on the top, and it turns out I did my math wrong. Now the space on the inside between the panels should be 3.5 inches. I measured and I made the whole board 5.5 inches, which is 1 inch too big to properly fit everything. I measured with the router, which is 3.5 inches, and this left an extra inch of space. I decided to take this to the table saw and cut that inch off to give me the proper 3.5 inches bed with an inch to spare for the 1/2 inch sidewalls. 1.5 plus 1/2 is 1 inch. But I felt like these should go on the outside edges. That just looks so much nicer, and I think it's gonna hold up better structurally. To cut this board again. Now that I have the board down to 3.5 inches itself, which is the same as the router, that's gonna bite me later, I'll show you. I grab my clamping board to put in the middle. This is kind of a call to give those things a 90-degree reference to stand up to, so that when I'm clamping the side panels on, they don't sag at the top and warp and make a huge pain in the butt to fix later. I cut that middle board down to size on my table saw using the same exact 3.5 inch setting. I didn't change it at all, and because of that, it should fit perfectly. Grab a pile of clamps and a little bit of wood glue. I use Titebond 2 for most of my projects. I just find it has the best bond strength to price ratio. Titebond 3 is what I would use on anything waterproof, and anything I just want to slap together temporarily, I'll use Titebond 1. You can apply this glue with your finger. I find it is my preferred method because you don't have to waste a sponge or a brush or a little applicator, whatever, every time you apply glue. And you can wipe it off with a white shop towel or some other wiping implement. Now that we have the glue applied, we can put on our side panels. I'll put this one on first and then rotate it. And then after I put the glue on, I'll stick this one here. Then, once it's stood upright, you put your clamping caul down the middle and slap the clamps on all the sides. Just be careful you don't knock over your glue. No! Anyways, now that I have all the clamps on, I'm just gonna let this sit overnight to dry because it's late in the evening. Next day I came out and I decided to cut on those end caps that are going to keep the sled from sliding off the rails. I'm then going to stick it on the end with super glue and wood glue alternating. This should hold it on while I wait to clamp because I still need to get the other side, and this super glue should dry fast enough that it doesn't fall. Alright, I'm just going to put this on a flat surface to reference to, make sure everything is nice and straight, and then I'll slap a clamp on there once both pieces are on, make sure everything is nice and tight. And look at that. I decided to slap some screws in there because that's just going to make everything a lot easier and sturdier.
Well, my router bit is coming in the mail, so I'm not going to route out this channel until I have that bit because I want it to be the same size. So, when is it coming? Router bit's coming on Tuesday, I believe, which today is Sunday. So, I'll see you guys probably on Wednesday or Tuesday night. Who knows? It'll be instant, so I'll see you in a few seconds.
Hey, here's that bit I mentioned. I had to order it a second time because the first one had a 1/2 inch shank on it, and my router only has a 1/4 inch collet. Now this is a CNC bit from Spetool. It's 1 1/4 inches diameter. It has 4 interchangeable blades that you can rotate and use over and over again. So yeah, let's give this a shot. So the first problem I ran into was the boards. Because I set the baseboard to 3.5 inches exactly, the router was binding. It was kind of mixing in with that tacky glue on the corners and the sawdust that was blowing off of the router, and it just made for a choppy push. As you can see here, it's not really gliding how I want it to. So I decided to bring out the hand sander, and this actually took a lot longer than I'm showing on film. But as you can see, once I get it done, the router glides through nicely, and after about 4 or 5 cuts, just shallow cuts going through back over and over again, I managed to make it all the way through the board. Here's the 5th one. And I'm just going to bring out my prototype cutting board. These will be available in my shop soon. I don't know when, but there will be a video released when it happens. I just made a couple shims on the bandsaw out of scrap wood, and you're going to put the shims underneath the corners of your cutting board, or whatever else you're surfacing. What you want to do is find any warps on the bottom of your board and press down so that you can put a shim under the high spots. It should be totally stable on the bottom so that you can router out the top.
Well, as you can see there, my router rail was just a frog's whisker too tall. So I cut it in half and made these guys. They're much smaller and they fit my cutting boards snugly. Not snugly, but it fits right underneath it. With enough room for that CNC bit to reach down and grab anything that sticks up. Sadly, I don't have to route anything on this right now because the cutting boards aren't done yet. And when I routed out this one, my camera was dead. So I'll post that in a future video. You'll get to see it in action and it'll be great. Anyways, thank you very much for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends. Go visit my website, my Patreon, my Instagram, my Facebook. All the platforms really, except for TikTok. Anyways, hope you have a nice rest of your day. Continue, go ahead and watch some more videos. How else do I end this? I suppose we'll just end it there. God bless. See you guys later.